Welcome to the Actually I Can Female Entrepreneur podcast. I am your host, Kaylee Greenacre, a business strategist, coach, TEDx speaker, author, and your go-to woman for all things business strategy. I am obsessed with supporting female entrepreneurs to grow unstoppable six and multi-six-figure businesses that they love, giving them the freedom and life that they desire. During this podcast, I'll be sharing with you everything that you need to become a successful female entrepreneur, from the mindset shifts to sales and marketing strategies, and how to become an iconic leader that people can't get enough of. It is my mission to help you stand out, attract your dream clients and customers, and sell out of your offers with ease whilst building the business and life of your dreams. Let's make this your reality, ladies. Hello, ladies, and welcome to another episode of Actually I Can, the Female Entrepreneur podcast. And I'm joined today by the fabulous Sofia Fiotaki, who is a holistic anxiety coach. And in today's episode, we're going to be diving into the inner work behind business growth, facing fear, rewiring beliefs, and becoming an iconic leader. Sofia, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me here. I am so excited to dive in.
Absolutely. We're going to have a great conversation and give lots of pieces of advice, I'm sure, to our fabulous listeners all around this topic. But why don't we start off by introducing you a little bit more to our listeners so they can find out a little bit more about your journey?
Absolutely. Okay. So my journey begins with really crippling anxiety ever since childhood, as far back as I can really remember. And just for so many years, I just really felt like there was something wrong with me, always fighting against my own mind. And I spent years trying traditional methods, therapy, medications, self-help books, all the things, and never really felt much of a difference. So I just sort of felt confirmed that I was broken. And eventually the anxiety started to manifest into different areas of my life. So I started having night terrors, I developed eating disorders, and I very quickly went down the route of just numbing it, just anything to escape it so that I could function, so that I could appear sort of normal on the outside. So that very much started off with alcohol. It then transitioned into drugs, and then a little bit of a mix of the both, and a lovely little cocktail going on. And then, eventually after many years of escaping myself and just numbing it, it began to be clear that it wasn't a long-term solution, that I needed to find something else. But I also felt like I had dug myself such a deep hole in these addictions at the time that I felt like I just needed a new start, essentially, some way to really commit to finding a proper way of healing instead of just numbing. And so I booked a one-way ticket to Greece to fully commit to doing this, like a completely fresh start, somewhere I always wanted to live. That was a big dream of mine. So I took that big leap. It was terrifying, but definitely best decision ever. And there I really committed to healing, to actually understanding myself, to actually reconnecting with myself after, fighting myself for so long. And I worked with many different people. I really dove deep into things like yoga and mindfulness, nervous system healing, inner child work, so many different things to really understand the root of all of this. Because the other thing was, like, all the traditional methods I found were very much based around coping. And I found like it doesn't allow you to function normally, because it's like a full-time job, just coping and just, just feeling just as lost, because it's just fighting against this thing that you don't understand. So it was really important for me to actually understand the anxiety, to actually understand what's happening inside, instead of finding new ways to hide it or numb it or just pretend it's not there. So a big part of this was rediscovering myself and understanding what was happening beneath the surface, and realizing that anxiety wasn't never even the issue. It was just a symptom of something much deeper. And so this really sparked a massive passion of mine as I was healing and really taking back control of my life. I wanted to share this, because for so long I was told that I had to learn to live this way, that this is just it. Like, you just learn to manage anxiety and cope it, and that's the end of the road. And it's just, I find that there's so much more there that's just not being spoke about. And so because my journey began with yoga, I first began by becoming a yoga teacher. And I did that for a few years, and that was amazing. But I also felt like there was a lot more that I wanted to give from my journey. And, there were so many different pieces to healing. I don't think you can just call it one single practice. And this is what led me to do further studies and become a coach and started building my business of where I am now today. And I've been building it for around 4 years. Lots of different hurdles and lovely adventures in the meantime, of course, that comes with building a business. And here I am today.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that story as well. And a little bit of a vulnerable story in terms of the journey that you've been on, but also fascinating that, it is a self-discovery of exactly what's happening. And like you said, you identified that you could see what was happening and the symptoms, but actually had to do the inner work to really explore exactly what was going on. And I think this is what we want to talk about a little bit today, don't we? In regards to, as entrepreneurs, so many of us are focused on strategy. And obviously I am a strategist. I focus on helping people with strategy, right? But you focus on that inner work for entrepreneurs and in individuals. So what does that actually mean in the context of building a business? Let's kind of put a bit of context for our listeners here. What is the inner work? Let's unpick that first.
I think that's such a great question because I think it's become a little bit of a buzzword almost. So it's like
Yes,
being
it
thrown
has.
around all the time. Like do the inner work, do the inner work, but we don't spend much time actually explaining what that actually is or what that means or how that influences things because I think it's really interesting when it comes to business. I think everyone's mind goes straight to strategy, and of course, like strategy has a really important impact, like a big piece of the puzzle. You need to know what the strategy is to building your business, or you're just sort of going to spend all day guessing and trying and going around in circles. Um, but I think the inner work is the part that is less often talked about or maybe touched on. Like I've been through a lot of programs that sort of touch on it, but I think there's like, and I think this is going to be sort of more, I don't want to say important, but sort of important for some people and less like, it depends how well connected you are with yourself, really, I think. But basically, the way that I see it is like you can have the absolute perfect strategy and know exactly what you need to be doing in your business. But if underneath that strategy, you're not trusting yourself, or you're afraid of being seen, or you don't really believe your work is valuable, or that you can give people good results, or you're constantly looking for that external right answer and validation that we're doing the right thing and always second guessing, no matter what we're doing, we're always thinking, oh, but maybe it's not the right thing and maybe I should do something else. And we get into this loop. It becomes really, really hard to actually follow through. And I think like this is a big thing where like people know exactly what they should be doing in the business, but they find a million other things to do in the meantime and they're avoiding it. You don't really realize you're avoiding it. And then you get stuck in this loop. And I think this is like one of the big ways that we see a need for the inner work. So there's something there. There's a reason why we're avoiding this thing. So like basically for me, the inner work is asking like, why am I acting this way? Or what is this bringing up inside me? What part of me isn't feeling safe about this next step? Because building a business isn't just a strategy journey. It's not about just ticking boxes. It's very much a journey of identity, of becoming, that leader, right? It's a very much a self-development journey because you are constantly becoming the version of yourself who can hold more in your business. You need to be ready to hold what you want to attract. It's not enough just to want it, because if it doesn't feel safe for us, even if it is coming our way, a lot of the time we will just jump straight into self-sabotage and push it away. And then we wonder why we can't attract it. And that's why I think a lot of us get stuck in this loop and we end up just looking for more things to do. It's still just keep ending up in the same square one.
Yeah, this is a really good explanation in terms of like the inner work and what actually happens, what actually happens with entrepreneurs. And I think with, as entrepreneurs, so many people will be listening to this and that they'll be growing or building, growing, or even scaling their business. And, there's so much fear. Well, there's so many different types of fears that come up, right? And also anxiety that often does show up. Like, why does this happen, first of all? Why does it happen to entrepreneurs when they're kind of on that journey and they've got these fears and anxiety that potentially will pop up quite consistently sometimes as well? Why?
I think that's a great question because again, it can be so confusing because it's like, I know I want to do this thing, like, and
Yeah.
you get excited, but then as soon as you try to actually, take the action and get close to it, like all of this fear and anxiety come up and then literally feels impossible. And I think it can very much turn into like a battle with yourself because it's like, why won't my mind just let me do the thing? Like I know I want to do it. And I think like one of the biggest reasons here is because what we are after is outside of the comfort zone. It's outside of what we have done before, and that is terrifying. But I don't think we realize how scary it can feel stepping out of that comfort zone. And for some of us, it's also because we're not super connected with ourselves, because we're just used to filling the gaps, filling the noise, always being busy, subconsciously sort of avoiding ourselves, and then we don't actually realize how scared we feel, like how much this is actually impacting how we feel. And so I think it's like really important to remember that our nervous system is what is deciding when we're safe, right? And it impacts everything, like everything, how you feel like in your body, how you are responding in the world, how you are showing up, like literally everything. And so stepping out of the comfort zone is terrifying to the nervous system, and it literally will do everything in its power to stop you from doing it. Right. And, it shows up as like, for some people, it's literally feeling sick. Like I know for me, it's nausea. Like I would just very randomly feel like I'm about to throw up, even though I'm just sitting at the desk, like literally nothing is going on. But internally, like there's this panic happening, right? And it's like, and it's, again, it gets really confusing because it's like, you were trying to attract these really great things, being more visible or earning more money or having more responsibilities and becoming known for your work, but it still feels unsafe because it's unfamiliar, right? And so your mind might be saying that I really want this, but there's another part of you, and this is the part of us that many of us are not very connected to, and a lot of us, and me included, like we just ignore it completely. The part of us that's saying like, is it actually safe to be seen? Is it safe to succeed? What if the people judge me? It's like this internal talk that we're very used to just pushing through or numbing it away. But if we don't actually learn to listen to it and get curious about it and start exploring it, it's going to keep coming up and it's going to keep you stuck in that loop. And that's why a lot of like entrepreneurs, I find they end up self-sabotage without realizing it. And they think it's a strategy thing. I'm stuck in this loop, I'm doing all the right things, but this thing keeps happening. It's like, it's because you're getting in your own way.
Yeah, this is so, so interesting, and absolutely, I think it's important to, really identify this. And there's quite a few common limiting beliefs, isn't there, as well, that often hold entrepreneurs back. I mean, what are the most common ones that you know of, that you see?
Definitely. And I know like for me, a lot of them came up as well because I think like, building a business is also very much a self-discovery journey, and it brings up a lot of fears that perhaps you thought you had worked through, or ones that you didn't really think you had it, but it's very exposing, very vulnerable work. You're really putting yourself out there. So it does really bring in the things that are like very close to the heart. So some of the most common ones that I see are things like, who am I to do this? Am I even good enough to do this? I think this is like the most common one. And what if I'm not good enough yet? What if I need to be working more? What if I haven't had enough life experiences? And that whole spiral. Also around, what if I need another certificate before I'm ready? And getting stuck in this loop, or we're just doing more courses and more courses to feel ready, but that feeling ready is never going to actually come. Also beliefs around things like success only happens for other people, money is only for other people, or earning money for something I love is just not realistic, like just convincing ourselves it's a whole fairy tale. If I'm more visible, I'm also going to be more judged. I have to be perfect before people can see me. And I think really when we look at underneath all of them, they all sort of tie down to like, am I actually safe to be fully seen as myself, to really put myself out there?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting as well because, I think this kind of links to potentially old patterns as well, maybe past experiences that might even influence them, especially when it comes down to limiting beliefs. But, how do past experiences or old patterns influence the way that we show up in our business today, would you say?
I think that is a great question. I think this is a really big opportunity as well for sort of beginning to explore beneath the surface, because also, well, actually, it's not really a choice, is it? Because if we don't do it, if we continue ignoring it, you're going to remain in this pattern. So it's worthwhile just having a little sneak peek because I really think business is such a mirror for what's happening in our inner world. And I've had a lot of surprises pop up for myself as well. Things that I thought were well and truly past. No, there's just another layer coming up, and I think this is also something to keep in mind. Even if we think we have done work on certain patterns, There are different levels to this. We
Mm.
may have worked on this level, but there was something even deeper that we haven't quite touched yet. But I think it's basically getting clear of like the patterns are coming from what we learned, the conditioning, right? So if we learned, for example, that I need everyone to like me, then it can show up as things like being afraid to share your honest opinions or your thoughts, or sort of watering down your message to be, to not disturb anyone or not make anyone feel icky, reading your stuff, or trying to speak to everyone because you're afraid of being judged by the wrong person. Or maybe you learned that mistakes aren't safe. And then that can show up as perfectionism, procrastination, never launching because it's never perfect enough. Or it could mean something like your needs aren't don't matter. Could be something that we learned. These are often come from childhood, and then that shows up as overgiving, having really weak boundaries, unable to stick to boundaries or stand up for yourself, resentment. And I think just a lot of the time it's not actually a business problem that we're running into. It's an old protective pattern showing up in your business.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time we haven't exposed ourselves in this way before for that pattern to sort of surface, and I think we don't realize that we actually bring all this conditioning, these patterns, these things that we learn as childhood, like those are also the core beliefs of bringing into adulthood. Like just because you don't think about it doesn't mean it goes away. It needs to actually be seen, to be healed, so that we can create new patterns, new conditioning, new ways of, new belief systems.
Absolutely. Belief systems are so important, aren't they, as well? And, again, doing the work around this is really important as an entrepreneur. We can't skip past this work. Everything that you're sharing right now is vitally important for us to be able to succeed, because if we don't do this work, we are going to be, like you said, stuck in that same cycle and not being able to get out of that cycle. And I feel like, a lot of women feel like they know what to do, but I don't feel like they take action.
Yes.
Like how does this link? I'm just speaking really honestly here, because I do. I think even I was in this position, at certain points of my journey, especially with my first business. And then obviously with this business in the earlier days, also, you feel like you know what to do, but then, I mean, is it to do with procrastination? Is it to do with fear? Like, what's really going on there? Or if we're kind of thinking, oh, I know I need to do this, but we're not actually doing it. Like, how does that all interlink with this inner work and what people are experiencing and maybe their limiting beliefs?
I think that's a massive one, isn't it? Because it's very, and especially because there's so much noise in social media telling us what to do. So it's
Yeah.
very, there's education everywhere. Like if you want a list of what to do to help your business, you'll find it everywhere. But actually implementing it, I think, is such a different thing, such a different thing. And I think this is a really, really important point to touch on, because I think there's a lot of shame around this. It's
Mm,
very easy to start feeling guilty and just like, and also just impacting your self-talk a lot, just calling yourself lazy. I'm inconsistent. I can't do this. I need more discipline. It's not for me. I'm too weak. The cycle goes on, but it's very easy to really, really beat yourself up about this, especially when it's been a while. And I feel like the longer we're stuck in this loop, it just gets harder. It doesn't get any easier to actually take that action, right? And again, I think we're very used to staying on the surface level and just looking around us like, what is the problem? Like maybe it's my desk. I used to always blame my desk, messy desk. It was messing with my thoughts and I couldn't focus, and that was the thing. So I would spend half the day just reorganizing my desk every day and just convinced that was the issue, not having realized that it's something much deeper once again. I think a lot of this ties down deeper into what is feeling safe, because that is what's going to determine how we show up. So if taking that action feels threatening to our nervous system, the mind and body are going to find ways to keep you exactly where you are in this safe little bubble, because this is where we can predict things, because we've done this loop a million times, so we know what happens. And I think it's worthwhile like reminding ourselves that our mind, our nervous system, our body, it's not here to make us happy. It would be lovely if it was, but the reality is all it cares about is you being safe. So if
yeah.
that means keeping you stuck in that same pattern because it's predictable, it's going to do everything in its power to do that, right? So because the unknown feels more dangerous than the familiar, even if that the familiar thing is really not satisfying and is making you really frustrated and really annoyed, it's still safer, right? So the question is less about like, how do I force myself to take that action despite being in this pattern, and it becomes more of like, what part of me doesn't feel safe to take this action step? Because this is really the only way to fully break a pattern, to understand where it's actually coming from. Because, I'd say like most scenarios, it actually has very, very little to do with what's happening in this present moment. Rather, something in this present moment is reminding us of an older wound where we learned that thing is unsafe. And the thing happening in this moment, in this present moment, is reminding us of that thing. So it's literally like reacting the same as when that core wound was actually created.
Yeah. Awesome. And then, so how does one start recognizing then when either fear or anxiety is driving their decisions in business? Because I think this is also a big blocker, isn't it? If they are allowing fear or anxiety to basically drive or make those decisions, that's going to be a massive problem in their business. So how can someone start recognizing that?
I think that is again a massive one, isn't it? Again, like I know for me, my big one was collaborations. Like that was terrifying to me. And I was stuck in this loop of avoiding it for so long, convincing myself I was doing a lot of other really important things and, it was fine and that time will come. Never came.
Yes.
I think we're very, very good at making excuses for ourselves, and just convincing ourselves we're not doing that thing, but it's because we're doing this more important thing. There's always going to be a more important thing that we convince ourselves of. And I think it's really just starting to build awareness around what you are avoiding. And, it can be easier or harder for some. Like, I know for me, I'm a big journaler. Like, I love to write things out. It makes things feel more real for me as well. I don't know. My brain just loves writing. So like I would like set goals, like realistic goals, not necessarily, I'm not super comfortable with the big goals, as you may know. But like once for like, this, the end of this month or this month, I want to be focusing on this, and this, and putting deadlines on it and then reflecting on it. And the ones that I haven't done, getting curious around that, because that may be a sign of avoidance that I have not actually recognized is there. So, just asking yourself questions. I think this is what it really comes down to. Like, what do I keep saying I want, but I'm not moving towards?
Yeah.
Or like, what decision am I making from fear instead of desire? Like, what is actually that driving force behind that decision I'm making? Or if I fully trusted myself, what would I choose? Or what would I be doing differently? And comparing what you're doing now. And, I think like avoidance in general, it actually holds a lot of information. Like it really can drive us towards what is feeling unsafe, where, our nervous system is perhaps keeping us further back, where we're self-sabotaging. So I think it's really just getting curious and asking questions rather than, not coming in it from a place of judgment, rather coming into it like, okay, what is actually going on here? Why am I stuck? Why am I feeling stuck? And just asking questions.
And this leads to, well, links, I suppose, to self-trust, doesn't it? And self-trust, as we know, it plays a massive part of building a business, building a successful business, right? I mean, let's dive into that a little bit. What role does self-trust play?
I think that's a massive one. And again, one that I think many of us are very, very much lacking. Because if we look at like our modern society and how we are like, how the majority of us are being brought up, there's not really a phase in our life at school where it's like, let's get to know ourselves and build that self-trust. We're not even taught to feel our feelings. We're very much taught to ignore everything, to just, bottle it all up so you can show up and be professional and be productive. And, I think that's why like a lot of us don't realize how much we're lacking in self-trust, and it impacts everything. And especially when we look at entrepreneurship, there is no guarantees. There are always going to be lots of bumps on the journey. It's how we learn. We will make mistakes, and things are not always going to go the way that we want. There's going to be rejection. There's going to be all of these things. And I think self-trust is one of the most important tools we ever will have in this journey. Because there's always going to be more strategies. There's always going to be other opinions. There's always going to be other people telling you that their way is right and their way is right. And it becomes so overwhelming, And without self-trust, it's very easy to get into this cycle where we're constantly abandoning ourselves, looking for external answers. And that's why there's never enough answers. And that's why we get stuck in this cycle of, I need to do more courses and more masterclasses and learn more things and more things and more things until we feel enough. But that feeling enough doesn't come from this external
Yes.
place of getting more information, more information. It's something that's internal. And that's why I think, again, we get stuck in that loop of always searching externally for something that actually lives inside us. And I think as well, we also overcomplicate things a lot. You know, when we look at self-trust, it's actually not a complicated thing to build. It's just like a muscle, like anything else. It's just a matter of committing to it, showing up, you know, daily. And, you know, just like, you know, if you're going to the gym, you're not going to go once and expect to have abs. You know that it takes a process. You know it's going to take consistency. And you know sometimes it's not going to be so comfortable, but you know that the outcome of that is going to be worth it.
Yeah. Do you know
And,
what I
you
think?
know, yeah.
I was going to say, yeah, absolutely. You know, self-trust is just, it's just so important. And I think, you know, from my own experience as well, I always am a firm believer that you've got to follow your gut instinct. You've got to go with that instinct inside you, right? And trust yourself with that. Because like you said, there are so many influential things online at the moment. I mean, there have been for years, but ultimately that can be a big blocker and actually
Yeah,
stop people from leaning into the self-trust, right?
100%. And like, I know for me, especially the first 2 years, 1.5, 2 years, somewhere around there, when I was first building a business, I had a coach that was very much like, very masculine energy, you know, just do this, do this, do this, do this. And I was very good at following his orders, but it
Yes.
ended up feeling like his business. And it ended up feeling like something I resented because nothing in my own business actually felt aligned.
Mm.
And this was a massive wake up call. And that's why, like, the third year, I literally redid everything from square one. Like, I released everything I had built in the 2 years. I was like, right, I need to make something that's actually mine. You know, and I think this is a massive part around self trust, you know, because I didn't trust myself to make any decisions in my business. And I was just asking the coach for everything, everything. Like, even the name of my business was his. Like, everything in my business was his. And I was like, this isn't mine. Right. And I think, again, coming back to how simple this actually is, it's like, I think one of the biggest ways and the simplest ways is just making small promises to yourself and
Mm.
actually keeping them. But like promises that are dead easy, that like it would be hard not to do it.
Okay.
Because I
Yeah.
think we're very, you know, I think we immediately go to this nice fantasy world of like, well, I would love to be doing face masks every day. But is it realistic? Like, if you've had a really long day and you just want to go
Yeah.
to sleep, like, are you really going to do that? Like, really being conscious of, again, not self-sabotaging yourself, like actually setting yourself up for success. So
Yes.
thinking about something really, really simple, that's a promise that you can actually keep to yourself, or something as simple as practicing listening to your body. You know, especially when it comes to like maybe something new you're doing in your business or something that you have been sort of second guessing. Just
Mm.
noticing what sensation you can notice in your body. Like it's going to be like for some, if you're really disconnected, it can be a little bit difficult. And maybe you begin just with like body scans, you know, just YouTube body scans. There's a million different ones there. Or as you said, practicing following your gut feeling, your intuition. You know, I think
Mm.
there's so much there that again we're so used to just silencing it. You know, and we feel like, well, I don't have an intuition. Like, you know how many times I've heard that I don't have an intuition. It's like, no, we just don't know how to listen to it, you know? And it's like it's a practice on itself. Again, it's a muscle. The more
Yeah.
you practice listening to your intuition and your gut feeling, the stronger it will become. And also, you know, and I think what ties to that as well is trying to loosen our grip a little bit with the logical answer. You
Yeah.
know, I'm in the process now of booking some people on my podcast, and there's been three of them that I have just said no to, and there's no logical reason for it. Like I know that they had, I mean, they didn't have a massive audience or anything, but still, it's more eyes, it's new eyes. But I didn't feel good. Like in the conversation we're having, I didn't feel good. So I just stopped it there. You don't have to find the logic to make it okay to make that decision, you know?
Yeah.
And that also ties to like taking aligned actions. before you necessarily have that certainty. Like if you, when you have, you have that like little nudge of like, I would really like to do this today.
Yes.
Follow it. Just do it, because self-trust is built through evidence. It's built through taking action. It's not sitting back and waiting for it to come to you. Like something that I used to do a lot. Like whenever I'm building a new practice, I will have like a jar, and every time I show up to that new thing that I'm doing, I will write it on a piece of paper and put it in the jar. And then days where I'm feeling really wobbly, it's really nice to be able to just look back and be like, oh, look at all these things that I did for myself. Look at all these little bits of evidence, right?
Oh, I love that idea. I love that idea. I used to do that actually. I used to do a gratitude jar, slightly different, but
Yeah.
brilliant, like brilliant concept, right? In regards to, again, daily practice. But this is great. So making a promise to yourself, doing the small little things, but consistently, and just really leaning into that to kind of support you with building that self-trust over time. Yeah. Yeah, this is
I
great.
think it's really good.
And I think, when people are building their businesses, maybe they're stepping into, I don't know, bigger visibility, higher income, more leadership, which all entrepreneurs will do over time. Why can it feel so uncomfortable or even start to feel unsafe again? Because I say for example, they've done some inner work and they've got to a place where they're really good, and then they step up into that next level of business, and then it's like, wow, this feels uncomfortable and really unsafe again. Why does that happen?
I think this is a big one, isn't it? And I think this is also like a big one, a big block of like why someone will stay at the same level in their business for a long time. Because like it's that like that even the thought of being more successful or the thought of having more income is triggering for a lot of people, and I think again it just feels really confusing, and it's like, well, maybe I'm just not meant to do this. We're very, very quick to go down that path of like, well, okay, can't do it. But I think we forget that a new level in our business also requires a new level in our identity, a new version, like literally a new version of you. It's like unlocking the next level of you. I think like this is always how I like to see it. Because again, I think we're very, very focused of like just what the business looks like, but not realizing and not remembering that that's a mirror of you. So if you're still seeing yourself as that person that will never make like a strong income or will never pass this certain goal, the external outcome of that is going to always match. Like your external world is never going to be bigger than what your internal world can hold. And again, I think this very much comes down to the nervous system, right? Because you are stepping into a version of yourself that you have never been before. This is not a familiar place. This is not a comfortable place. And that's why like even when you want it, your nervous system can interrupt it, because again, it's feeling unsafe, it's familiar, it's unknown, it's scary, no. So you may, a lot of the time we notice these random, well, what they feel random, like things coming up, like extreme imposter syndrome or procrastination or just wanting to hide or just completely just disappearing for a while and being like, this was too much, I'm going to take a break, or starting to question everything. Like I think that's such a big one as well. Like you question everything you've been doing, all the strategies, all the inner work, and it's like, what am I even doing here? And I think again, we're very quick to think that it's a sign that we can't do it. But I think also reminding ourselves it's not because it's not meant for you. It's not because you can't do this. It's because you're expanding beyond what feels familiar. And it doesn't mean you can't do that. It's just bringing in safety with it and doing it in a more strategic way than just throwing ourselves in the deep end. Just slowly building up and creating safety as we do that, literally giving you signals that actually this place is safe, we can do this. And again, building evidence, proving to yourself that I can do that and I was safe and it was okay. So what's the next step? Just really breaking it down.
Yeah. Sophia, this has been such an incredible conversation and just so much value here for our listeners in terms of the inner work and really following their self-trust, leaning into that, having, the belief that they can absolutely continue. So I just want to finish the podcast episode by you just giving a final piece of advice. What is the last thing or final thing that you want to share with our listeners today?
Okay, so a final advice. I think the biggest thing I would want someone listening to know is that the dreams and desires that they have them for a reason, right? And that if there is a part of you that feels called towards something bigger, a different life, a business, a mission, a version of you that you haven't fully stepped into it, to really practice listening to it. Like, this is the greatest drive. And if fear, anxiety, self-doubt, all these old patterns are showing up along the way, it doesn't mean that you're not meant for it. It doesn't mean that it's too far away. And sometimes the very thing that we want most is the thing that's also going to bring up the most fears. And I think a lot of the time it's like, it's really overwhelming and we just start to think that it's not for us, but that's the sign that it is, because it's a sign that it means so much to you. And it's so, it's something you deeply, deeply want. And that's why they're coming out.
Yeah,
so instead of like seeing the blocks as a sign to stop, practice getting curious and asking questions. What is it that's actually showing up for me? What part of me isn't feeling safe? Where am I being invited to heal? Because these are all directions in where we need some healing. Because building the life you truly want isn't about doing more or achieving more or finding perfect strategies. Although, all these things have a place, it's not the only thing, right? It's also becoming the version of you that can hold this life, this business.
Yeah. Incredible advice for our listeners, and I've really, really enjoyed this conversation. It's been absolutely fantastic. And I know that we all have so many listeners that will be listening to this, wanting to reach out, wanting to find out more and learn about the inner work that you do with all of your incredible clients. Sophia, where can people find you and connect with you?
I think the easiest way would just be popping me a message on Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok, or sending email, whatever platform is preferred. I think just starting a chat, really, getting some clarity going.
Amazing. All of Sophia's links are in the show notes, as well as her bio. Go and connect with her. Go and have a chat with her. She's incredible at what she does. And I know that this work is so, so powerful as an entrepreneur. Yes, strategy is absolutely key. We all know that I practice and preach this every single day because it is important, but so is the inner work. So go and connect with Sophia and find out more about it. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you.
Thanks to everyone for tuning in to today's episode. Please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast, and I'll see you all again next time. Thank you for tuning in to the Actually I Can Female Entrepreneur Podcast with me, your host, Kaylee Greenacre. If you are ready to build, grow, and scale your dream six-figure or multi-six-figure business, then head to our website now for more information or connect with me on socials to see how you can create your dream business and dream life.